Okay, hello everyone. And we're delighted that you have joined us. And we have a fantastic panel of bridal industry experts here to talk with you today. My name is Beth Sobel, and I'm the founder of the Global Fashion Business Alliance and creator of Miami Fashion Week. In my 20 plus years in the industry, I have not seen as much radical, transformative change as I have seen in the last 18 months. The change in many ways has been a combination of a perfect storm. Climate change, consumer consciousness of sustainability practices, the massive retail and supply chain disruptions due to the global pandemic, and an openness to Zooming our lives. After having such a profound halt to many aspects of our daily lives, we're beginning to see the light at the end of the COVID tunnel. One of the industries most affected by all of this disruption has been the bridal and wedding industry. And our experts are here today to give you insight and resources into developing your business and move you towards success. We would also like to thank our co-promoters and partners in creating this event: World Bride Magazine, expert bridal consultant Jane Heflin, Belle the Magazine, and the Global Entrepreneurship Network, or GEN. The Global Fashion Business Alliance, or the GFBA, is a fashion and retail business development organization that has created a virtual fashion education program for entrepreneurs, designers, and companies within the international fashion and retail industry. The GFBA has created the Fashion and Retail Entrepreneur Business Management Program, providing the latest information, contacts, and resources in collaboration with North America's top fashion business experts. These are in finance and factoring, supply chain management, digital marketing, and retail technologies, legal issues for protecting your brand, accounting, taxes and compliance, experiential branding, marketing and merchandising, and building a sustainable brand. The GFBA offers advanced individual and cohort-based training and support focused on scaling internationalization in all aspects of brand and company growth. The GFBA has a strategic partnership and collaboration with the Global Entrepreneurship Network. GEN fosters cross-platform collaboration among entrepreneurs, investors, researchers, policymakers, and ecosystem builders to scale businesses in over 180 countries. We are delighted to be collaborating with World Bride Magazine and Jane Heflin to provide you with a comprehensive program geared to bridal designers and entrepreneurs who are ready to break out, get unstuck, and grow their business. Today is the beginning of this multifaceted, months-long program that will highlight and focus on the central pillars of access, education, and opportunity, catering to bridal designers, retailers, and entrepreneurs throughout the US and around the world. Our intent is to focus on the tactical aspects of managing, growing, and scaling your business. We'll talk first about mindset, then about a unique educational program, then how to best leverage trade show opportunities, and finally, crowdfunding and creative ways of financing your business today. We will leave time at the end of the session for Q&A, so please put your questions in the middle section of your Zoom panel. We know the last 12 months have been difficult. The fashion, retail, bridal, and wedding industry has seen a massive disruption. Today, we're going to focus on how to reboot our minds, our perspective, and our business. Even with the disruptions from the last year, there is plenty of opportunity for growth, building your brand, and earning money in the bridal industry. We just need to dig in, get creative, get resourceful. And for the next 60 minutes or so, we'll have a stellar panel of bridal and crowdfunding experts that will inform you on ways to grow and scale your bridal business. So let's get started with mindset first. Our first guest is Meredith Leon McCormick. Meredith's tenacity and ability to appreciate the full context of any situation propelled her from a manicurist into a celebrity manicurist and then becoming the owner of a nail salon. She ultimately created her own nail polish line. She's also been a contributor to the Huffington Post while running a bridal salon. All of these experiences gave her the inspiration to become the founder and publisher of World Bride Magazine. An entrepreneur at heart, today Meredith splits her time between World Bride Magazine and MLM Represents, a public relations and content strategy company. Meredith, welcome to the panel. Thank you for joining us today. And from your vantage point as a publisher, can you give us some insight into when and how bridal designers approach you? What seems to be their primary challenges?
Well, they always come to ask for write-ups and editorial coverage, which is natural. When you think of a magazine, they're thinking, hey, I just want them readers to actually see my creative side of me, the product that they're selling, if it's not themselves or something that they've created. So they always approach us as magazines from the perspective of getting coverage for their product and services. But the challenge is if the brand is not well known or recognized, that's when we have to do our due diligence to make sure that the brand is ready and prepared for the readers to be able to access the product after reading it. Because and there's a thin line between editorial coverage and advertisement and marketing, which I know we're going to develop in the conversation. But editorial, for people that don't know it, it's like TV. What's real and what's not. People need to understand that editorial doesn't necessarily mean that the magazine has endorsed it. It's just covering it like media and news. There's not a I agree or this is it. It's we serve as a a journalist, and we write about something that's interesting and it's newsworthy for people to know about, and that's our job. I take it from the journalism perspective. Then there's sections in the magazine that are fashion and tips and so on and so on. It's advice and concept and so on. So there's different ways that we approach anybody that comes to us, and we try to manage their expectation when they do come to editorial, that you think it's free, but it's really not free.
Okay. Okay, well put. All right, now let's talk about breaking through the mental barriers that are limiting the brand's growth. Are you seeing that some bridal designers have a challenge, like moving from the fashion school mentality to becoming a true entrepreneur and running a profitable and sustainable business? What are you seeing?
Well, I see a lot of designers and they're brilliant and they're creative. And if they come directly out of school and then they have the entrepreneurship mindset and they're like, hey, I finished school and my product is gorgeous, I'm getting interest, that's great. But oftentimes, from what I understand, schooling only prepares you for one or the other, the business side or the creative side. You still need to have hands-on experience and to deal with it. And that's where I am a firm believer of continuing education. So that means hands-on experience. So if I was a bridal designer, I would look, or any fashion designer, I would look to work at a house like Paulette, who is the creative director at Yumi Katsura. I would reach out to somebody like that and say, hey, do you have any internship opportunities that I can go and I can learn? But not everybody has that access. So you're forced to now go through continuing education. But even if you did have internships or opportunities to have a mentor, the thing is, people have to understand the world is constantly evolving. So you're going to have to constantly be educating yourself and your market. And so, with your program, GFBA, I was excited about it because it's a continuing education. I look at it as a continuing education. Your organization makes it its point to be aware of what's happening in the market. So you're going to be a step ahead of me as maybe the designer or the creative. So for me, I try to encourage designers that do come to us for editorial coverage and so on to continually educate themselves because the market is continually changing. So those are my little tidbits about, how the market can work for them.
And you're right, the market does continuously change. So is your sense that bridal designers see themselves as an employee versus an owner? And what does it take to graduate from a small business to a medium-sized business?
That's a tricky question. That's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing for me. In their head, they're the owner. In their wallets, they're an employee. because you end up spending more money on your business, growing it, producing it. And there's so much that has to be done because there's components and compartments that things have to be done, or stages in which things should be done. So you, in your head, when the bills come in, you are the owner. Remember that. The bills will remind you. But when it's time to actually go out there and get it done and make those contacts and those resources, you are definitely an employee of the company and the brand in which you are the creator of. So I think they work hand in hand as far as that's concerned. So yeah, I might be the founder of World Bride Magazine and MLM Represent, but I'm still the cleaning lady when everybody leaves at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock. I have to put everything away. I have to file whatever so-and-so didn't do. I still have to do that. So there is no one versus the other. You always have to be prepared, or you have to pay for somebody to do it, you know?
Yeah, but that's the life of an entrepreneur. You know, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and I do everything from A to Z as well. So that's part of running your own business. But can you comment on the limitations or the hurdles that designers may have on, say, investing wisely in their business versus spending on the fun things?
Again, that's another layered response, because as you know what you need to do from the marketing. You know, people think that, you know, and I think things have changed. I think we all had this conversation before, that people seem to think that if they get an editorial, they don't have to buy advertisement. And if they have a PR person, they don't have to market. Or the best part for me, and people are probably going to hate me for this, is they think that they have access to social media, Instagram and Facebook, that they don't have to do the shows, the trade shows, you know, or when they get to the trade shows, they think that, oh, all I have to do is get a booth. And once I get the booth and I show my pretty dresses, hey, well, the sales are going to happen. And Jane can tell you jokes about that, you know, because she's been doing this for what, as long as I have, over 20 years. So the thing is, there is not one formula in success, in creating success for your brand of any business, of any product you may have. It is a gradual and a constant evolving wheel that can grow, diminish. It goes up and down like a roller coaster. And any major corporation that is still in existence can tell you that. You, whether it's Prada, Louis Vuitton, JC Penney, and you can just see in the histories, if you actually looked at their books, they had highs and lows. And we are learning this greatest lesson after COVID, during COVID, even right now. And that's why this conversation is happening, is because it's not as A to Z as people think there is. You know, it might be quick for you to get to A to D, but it's going to take you longer to get to F, you know, and you may have to go back, you know, and do B or C if you think you can skip one or the other.
So it's really a combination of everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what continued to move the ball down the road. So as far as promotions and helping a brand and building their audience, what is your opinion on trade shows versus a PR agency on retainer versus an advertising?
Wow. You can't have one without the other. You know, that's like me baking a cake from scratch and leaving the eggs out and wondering why it's not rising or it's not sticking or whatever eggs are supposed to do. You know, it's like, oh, I can do it with water and not milk when the clear instructions is put milk. You know, oh, I'm going to put juice in it instead of it, and it's going to come out the same way. So we can't substitute one for the other. They all work in an alignment with each other. And I feel like, you know, and I don't know how, you know, my heart beats when I'm with women like you guys. And I've known Paulette, I'm not going to age us, but, you know, for so many years. I met Paulette when she was with Designer Loft. You know, she evolved into becoming on the design team of Yumi Katsura, but before Yumi Katsura, and creative director, but before she got to be the creative director and the one that actually heads the brand and what it looks like today, she was at Disney. She was doing so many other brands that got her to that level. And if she tells you her full story of how she got started, it wasn't overnight. And the same thing with Jane. She went from starting a show at, I think it was the couture show at the Intercontinental and the Waldorf Astoria and all of that. We all met during that season when Bridal was hot. But that, at least it was hot to the public that was looking at it. But they didn't understand the behind the scenes and what this woman had to do to bring in brands, secure hotels, convince the city and the hotels that bridal was a big thing and a necessary thing. And if people know anything about the fashion world, the bridal world was a second-class citizen of the fashion industry. And now it's literally a $300 billion industry. So people sleep on certain things, but that's if you don't do your homework. So for me, everything works together. You have to just work things through in stages, and you can only work with the budget you have. And so for a new business, that's the true challenge they have. Honestly, they don't necessarily have the access to the cash and the money that they need to sustain them past next month. So it is such a challenge that I see businesses face and they go under. But yet we've seen bigger brands start to partner with other bigger name brands. What's the reason behind it? I don't know, unless we look and investigate in it. And one of the latest partnerships that I saw, I was surprised but really happy, is Pronovius partnered with Vera Wang. Pronovius is doing a collection with Marchesa. You would think that as independents, that they could survive and sustain themselves, but yet there's still a partnership, and just look at our stage. We decided as women in business at 4 different, approach of doing this one industry that we can complement each other. So when we as small business owners and women in business, minorities in business, stop looking at each other as a competition, we can start seeing each other as a collective. Because where I can't satisfy one particular brand, I can, hey, Alejandra, you have Bella Magazine and it caters to the Latin community. I touch on it, but that's not my core market. So wouldn't it be to my benefit to partner with a magazine that does that already? And we do that with World Bride Magazine. We do it with Black Brides. We do it with Monolucci. If I don't cover something, I send it out to the women and the people that does. Love Inc. They do it with the gay, lesbian, and LGBTQ community. If that's not the core of all my content, why aren't I shifting it to the people that's their expertise? Because oftentimes we're all in the same room. So that's what I try to tell people. Look at companies that are comfortable in their space and look for collaborations.
There you go. It's all about collaboration and working together. Thank you, Meredith. That was a lot of really great information, and we appreciate your insights. Let's shift gears a little bit. During the 20 years that I ran Miami Fashion Week, I could clearly see, the talent and the creativity in the designers who participated. But what also became increasingly apparent was their lack of education and business knowledge. The basic foundational nuts and bolts to really create long-lasting, sustainable businesses was missing. After I sold Miami Fashion Week in 2015, I decided to focus on finding ways to close the gap and help the designers really learn how to run their business. This became very important to me because without this type of knowledge, the designers were never going to be able to grow and scale their brands. So today we have more to those efforts into the GFBA's 8-week Fashion and Retail Entrepreneur Business Management Program. This is a comprehensive, unique, and virtual program that is available to everyone. To give us more context on the program, I'd like to introduce Sergio Manquita from Gen Accelerates.
Hi, Beth. Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, or good evening. Great to be here with this panel as well. As Beth mentioned, I'm on the Global Entrepreneurship Network team, and we've collaborated with GFBA to really put together a very dynamic program. When we started looking at the landscape and what was available, we noticed a couple of really immediate things. One, there seemed to be a little bit of a disconnect between education, practical education, and the fashion industry. In what was active and participating, those programs were either too elementary or too theoretical, right? So we really wanted to do something that was much more best in class and really took on best practices from different things happening from around the world, where entrepreneurs in different stages of what they were could really build on, right? We also wanted to build that based a little bit more on the traditional way in which accelerators are done, if any of you are familiar with those, originally started in Silicon Valley. And what we came up with is, it's a program that's practical, one that really builds off of the experience of subject matter experts and entrepreneurs that have been able to balance and go back and forth on everything that they've been doing it. But most importantly, it's a program that's really applicable to any type of entrepreneur, right? Regardless of whether and in any segment of fashion, right? Regardless of where they are, a designer, a distributor, a technologist. And we wanted to make that all completely inclusive, right? Bring everybody under the tent, because that's when real innovation and creativity starts, right? And with that, so under this great big tent that we've put together, we welcome everybody, right? And you could be a designer in evening wear, in leisure wear, in swimwear, and of course in bridal wear. So we welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and put up the slide. Let me tell you a little bit more about what this program is and what the different components of this 8-week program are. Okay, it basically rests on 4 pillars, if you will, right? The first one is practical education. The second one is live mentoring. There's pitch practice and development, and there's also a demo day. So to that end, what is that practical education really all about? Okay, as Meredith was mentioning, there's a lot of things that, in university and college, there's a lot of theory. Okay, for this, we really wanted to get to the nuts and bolts. Okay, so through that, on a weekly basis, we look at different modules, different themes, and how they relate to really growing, scaling your business and thinking about it differently. So to that end, through the 8 different weeks, we look at different topics, everything from entrepreneurship fundamentals to customers and KPIs, your product, your pricing strategy, sales and strategic partnerships. Of course, the all-important equity, finance, and cash flow. That's what's really going to allow you to make sure that you're around next year. And the things that you may be more familiar with, marketing, public relations, digital marketing, right? But it's also important as a business owner to tackle those things that maybe you're not so comfortable with, right? Everything to do with legal and taxes and intellectual property. So we cover that. So think of it as each week builds on the next. And through the week, there's video lectures, there's actual reading materials, and there's also different assignments or different deliverables that you build on to help you consider and think and help you think about your business differently. Okay, so that's the practical education component. Pillar number 2 is really much more about live mentoring. Okay, we know that each venture, each entrepreneur, it's unique, and they're going to have different needs and necessities. And it's through this live mentoring, and that's when we can dig deeper into that. That's done on a weekly basis. Think of this as your office hours, where you can come in and talk about something that was discussed earlier that week as part of the class, a current customer issue that you're dealing with, a production issue, a supply chain, or something of that nature, right? So you're basically paired with a general business advisor that's going to help you through this. It's going to walk you through it, ask the right types of questions to get you through it. And it's this real-time feedback, right, that makes our program unique. This is something that's not offered in most of the programs out there. So that's leg number 2. Leg number 3, it's about pitch practice and development. Okay, so at the end of the day, you're all very creative, you're all very talented. Okay, and we want everybody to see your wonderful creations, but they need to be sold. And in order to sell them, you have to know how to sell them and how to say it and how to position your messaging for the different audiences that you're talking to. So to that end, that's where pitch practice and development happens. It's on a weekly basis again, and we create a safe space for you to really be able to approach it, to rehearse it, to try different things, from the visuals on your deck to the phrasing, to making sure that it talks about that it weaves your story in a way that's compelling and relevant, but it also speaks to the true voice of who you are as a person, as an artist, as a creator. Okay, that's leg number 3. And the last one is really demo day. Demo day is demonstration day, where it's kind of, let's call it the graduation plus. Why? Because everything that you've taken and that you've learned over the last 8 weeks and you've applied and you've seen through it, okay, that's where you actually are able to pitch or present yourselves in front of buyers, distributors, potential strategic partners, okay? And it's this type of experience that you need to be able to gain that confidence, to understand how to position yourself and your business. So those are the 4 pillars of that. And naturally, you're thinking, okay, this sounds great, but who am I going to be learning from? Beth, who are they going to be learning from?
You will be learning from a very impressive group of founders, presidents, and the top fashion and retail business experts in the North American market. And I'd like to introduce you to the GFBA Advisory Board. First up, we have Tim Moore, who is the Executive Vice President of Hilton Corporation in New York City. They are the top finance and factoring companies in the country, and represent or have worked with over 500 of America's top fashion designers. Nancy Marino is an absolute supply chain expert, and she's a principal at Columbus Consulting. Steve Mayer, he's the managing partner of Prager Matus, their CPAs. He's in New York City. They have offices all over the country, and he has a specialty in fashion and retail accounting. Chris Vignon, he's the CEO and managing director of PM Business Advisors, and he's all about tax and compliance. David Pilnick is the president of Pilnick & Associates, and he's the brand development expert. He's the one himself who opened the Saks Fifth Avenue stores in the Middle East and Mexico City. And Ron Thurston, he's the vice president of stores at Intermix, and he's an author and a retail expert. Danielle Garneau, an attorney with Reed Smith, all things legal, and we know we need that help as well. And then we have Steve Trainer, who's the managing partner of the Barbarian Agency, and they are branding and social media experts. So you are absolutely learning from the cream of the crop of the fashion business experts in the American market. This impressive group of industry experts are your mentors, your advisors, and your teachers in the GFBA program. And nowhere will you find such a group of experts together in one place. Sergio.
Outstanding. So as you can see everything from supply chain management to legal to branding experts. Everything is covered. So the other thing that's important is you're asking yourself, okay, so this is a virtual program. How is it delivered? Okay, so we deliver it through our own proprietary platform. Okay, and this is a really state-of-the-art dashboard where you log on. You can log on through your laptop. You can log on through your phone. And you have access to all of the videos, all of the recordings. You have your calendar. You can network with other people in the group, right? And so this is a fantastic way that everything works together seamlessly, regardless of time, regardless of geography, right? And so this is all inclusive for up to 4 members of your team. Okay, so you can include up to 4 members of your team for all of this. And we run these programs whenever we have 6, and in each program, in each cohort, there's usually 6 to 10 companies, okay? So if you consider all the different legs between practical education, mentoring, pitch practice, and all of that, and actually putting together the assignments or what have you, you probably need to set aside 10 to 15 hours a week to be able to get through that. Okay, so now that we've given you an overview of all of that, it's really the 8 weeks are comprehensive. They're integrated. There's been a lot of thinking into all of that, and with that, this provides you the tools, the resources with the subject matter experts in fashion, in retail, whether you're a startup or in scaling, within that combination to really help catapult you to the next thing that you need to go to.
Thank you, Sergio. It's all great information, and we can see what an impressive group of experts and program that we have planned for everyone. And I'd like to introduce our next expert, and that's Paula Claycorn. She's a CMO, designer, and creative director of Yumi Katsura Couture and Ashton Brands. And Paula serves in the capacity of the creative director of Ashton Brands, housing such high-profile bridal and special occasion labels such as Victor Harper, Cristiano Lucci, Simone Carnevale, Ashton and Justin, Zoe Gray, and Disney's Royal Ball. She also serves as head designer and creative director at the Italian house Cristiano Lucci and for Japan's Yumi Katsura Couture since 2010. Katsura is one of Japan's and the world's most prolific design houses, whose wedding dresses and couture creations are considered modern masterpieces. Yumi Katsura showcased the most expensive wedding dress sold to date, valued at 1 billion Japanese yen, or $8.5 million US. Paulette, you're not only a designer, but you're also an entrepreneur. You mentioned to me recently that creativity alone isn't enough. You need to have the business knowledge and understanding of how to turn your creativity into a profitable venture. When starting out, what steps did you take to bridge your creativity and entrepreneurial spirits together?
Hi, Beth. Yes, creativity definitely allows you to stand out from the rest. You can be artistic, but you can't lose sight that your brand will have to show profit sometimes. And I think as designers, sometimes we just focus on the glamour and the glory and the fabulousness of being in the fashion sphere and not, focus on anything else because we think we're just the most talented person and it's going to work. And then you end up, becoming broke or busted. And I have amazingly talented friends in the industry that haven't been successful because they're more interested in becoming, the next big thing as opposed to running a business. And then they end up disappointed and disgruntled for life. And that's unfortunate. Being creative and looking for a way to translate your creation can actually into something that can be sold and so that you can make a living can be really tough. My way was not actually to have a label of my own where I funded everything. I did everything. I actually worked for brands where I got paid. And I think there's a lot less stress in that. And I think recommending that emerging designers maybe take that route before they go out on their own. They'll learn a lot that they wouldn't have learned in schools or, a lot of people just think that they know how and without, again, having that experience. And it's really sad. So I think joining an existing company, it's not so easy to get a job with a company, but you should apply for it. Meredith mentioned internships, put your name out there or say you're looking, you can't be too proud or you can't be so egotistic that you think you cannot work under somebody else because you're just that fabulous. And even now I've been offered the opportunity to have my own name on a label, but I'm not sure if I want that. So, and that's why you see brands like the Marquesa, Pronovius, as joining with Pronovius and Vera Wang. That's a licensing deal where they get paid a percentage and they're not putting anything out. So when you see someone who's as wealthy as Georgina Chapman or Vera Wang deciding to partner up with somebody, there's a reason. When I started in the industry, I remember reading an article that Vera Wang, this was like my first week, that Vera Wang actually, her advertising expenses were 5 times the profits that they made. And I was like, why is she doing this? This doesn't make any sense. And I thought, this is just not for me. I don't think that, and to understand that she's built this massive brand and has made millions from it, she knew that she had to make this investment and she fortunately was able to. In school, again, we're not taught enough to have better business skills. There are schools in New York like LIM, which is a school that's actually designed to marry the business of fashion and the creativity of fashion together. So it's a fashion business school. And I've had 3 interns that are now were served as brand managers or directors that came in as interns from LIM. I think that, I don't know, I think fashion schools have to have some kind of class to teach people practicality and some kind of business acumen. Fortunately for me, before I became a designer, I had business sense, but I still made a couple of mistakes in hindsight. One of the hardest things in the industry as a designer slash entrepreneur is knowing how to actually make a decision or an informed choice and not, flying off the handle. Making decisions is one of the most important aspects or features of a business person. You can't be paralyzed by fear. What if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't happen? What if I go to the trade show and nobody buys my product? That's probably going to happen at some point, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You go out there and you brand yourself, and that's part of the growing. We can't go from 0 to 100, in one time. So fortunately, some people are fortunate enough to experience that, but it's very, very rare. The other thing is, when everything isn't working for you when you want it to, you have to realize that you can't give up. It's easy to give up. It might take you a while to become successful, but remember that success is an ongoing process. In the meantime, you need to improve yourself. Education is really important. No matter how successful you are, you have to keep educating yourself. Things are only going to get better when you do that. Nowadays, there's so much information at our fingertips, more than ever. I mean, the internet obviously is an amazing source to answer tons of questions. You can find the answer to almost anything on a search. There's so many great online communities and creatives and entrepreneurs and programs like this and yours, where people, have the world at their fingertips. There's a site called Founder. They have amazing articles for people that are looking to own their own business. There's another site called Mavenly that's awesome for women, giving advice. There are online classes. And so I just think that, just educate yourself and keep educating yourself, because without education, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance.
And there you have it. Absolutely. Because, without knowing what you're doing on the business side of your company,
yep,
you're going to make a lot of mistakes, unfortunately. It's just the nature of the beast. And there's nothing really as an overnight success. Those overnight successes took about 10 years to get there. But there is so much pressure, for designers to come out with their greatest collection season after season. What advice do you have to emerging designers on this?
Okay, so there's inspiration everywhere and in everything. Oftentimes, inspiration finds you. You have to always be aware of your surroundings. Sometimes your inspiration can be a response to cultural or social issues. In my last collection in 2020, it was called Ravishing and Resilient, because, God knows that for the last year, we've all had to be resilient. And you know what? One day you wake up and you're like, maybe I don't need to wear my sweats every day or be in this, this misery and doldrums of what's going on right now. Let's make everything fabulous, because I know that after all of this, fabulous is going to matter more than ever. So let's just be a little bit more over the top. And that was inspired by the pandemic, as opposed to the opposite. And then, of course, we did matching masks to each of the dresses. So you're always going to be inspired by and learning from also designers past and present. And truth is that although we think we're all the smartest and the best and the most brilliant, nothing is really new. With greater technology and access to the world, we're actually allowed or offered the opportunity to be even more creative than the past. Ultimately, it's how you build on it and lend your voice and put your footprint onto something that, makes it uniquely you. And that's what designers have to do.
Day after day.
Day after day. And I think that one thing, though, with designers, that sometimes we actually have the problem of becoming, going over analyzing and analysis paralysis because we're getting too much inspiration. It's like, sometimes designers tend to do this, and you have to slow down. The time it takes you to make a decision and start working towards your goal is just to slow down, breathe. It's going to work. Bottom line is that you have to trust your talent. You have to trust your instincts. And remember that the only learning you get allows you to, the learning and the teachings that you've had allows you to breathe life into your creation. The rest is an everyday evolution. In the end, it's survival of the fittest, and you must be open to learning every single day. We're never too smart or talented to learn every single day from everything and everyone. So it's important.
Agreed. Agreed. So what was the biggest mistake you made when you first got started?
Oh boy, my biggest mistake. Well, I think I can say without a doubt that it was being completely ignorant of the payment cycle in the bridal business. Let's say a bride comes into a store. Okay, from a wholesaler's or designer's perspective, you get into this business and you hear, the bridal business is a, $33 billion business, all of this stuff, and there's so much money to be made, but we don't understand like the payment cycle or the cash flow cycle. I didn't understand it. I just thought we're going to make so much money and we're going to be so rich and fabulous and all of this good stuff's going to happen. So for instance, when a bride comes into a store, they buy your dress, they make a 50% or whatever deposit. The retailer then orders the dress from the designer. 16 weeks later, that's 4 months, we ship the gown. The shops now take 60 to 90 to 120 days to pay. So you're 7 to 9 months from getting any kind of money for this product that you made almost a year ago. I mean, that is an absolute nightmare. So I never knew that. I didn't understand. It just didn't seem like something that could even be possible. And when people are advising, my husband was a bond trader, so he always had business advice for me. And not knowing, and he's looking at the cycle of maybe like a Macy's or a big box department store, not knowing that the bridal industry and a mom and pop store is completely different. So it's imperative to be financially capable to produce orders while you're waiting for an incoming cash flow. And a lot of designers go into business not knowing this, especially in the bridal business. And, before becoming a designer, we had a consultancy company too. And this was like one of the biggest issues. Same thing with them. They're like, well, what do you mean? And a lot of European designers think that they're going to get a deposit from an American store, and American stores don't really like giving deposits. So it's usually a battle, or they go home with their tail stuck between their legs, or, I'm sure Jane will, agree to all of that. So you definitely have to, I can't say enough that you have to do everything you can to avoid being underfinanced. And you mentioned like the Hilden Group and factoring, and these are all things to learn about, so that was a huge mistake, to overlook such an important aspect. It's also a really important part of a business plan when you're creating one for a business in this industry, to understand, the time gap between payment and delivery and payment. So watch out for that.
So important between learning your cash flow and timing. And
Absolutely.
we've taken all of that into consideration in our programming, for the educational program that we've created, because this is a huge problem with designers everywhere, not just bridal, but everywhere. Whether you're starting out, you're an emerging designer, you've been in business for a few years, even 10 or 20 years, keeping that cash flow management in check is an ongoing challenge. So thank you for all this, Paula. Great insight. Really good, information there. And let's talk about sales and participating in trade shows. I'd like to introduce you to my dear friend and bridal consultant, Jane Heflin. Jane is a veteran in the bridal industry. Her work spans from designing her own children's wear line for Neiman Marcus and Bridal for Jasmine Enterprises, to product management, material procurement, marketing, sales, and multi-unit bridal retail management. In recent years, Jane has focused on B2B bridal trade shows. During her tenure as the director of the Knot Couture Show in New York City, and now as the director of the National Bridal Market Chicago, Jane helped both shows grow to the bridal industry's leading trade shows in the North American market. Jane searches for domestic designers and regularly travels abroad in search of the best and cutting-edge creativity to attend her shows. Jane, take it away.
Hi, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. It's so good to see Meredith and Paulette, my partners in crime in the industry, and you, Beth, I've known forever.
Yeah.
What can I tell you about the bridal trade shows? The Chicago bridal market has been around since the early 1980s. It is housed in the fabulous historic Merchandise Mart on the river in Chicago. It's 200,000 square feet of open trade show space. Twice a year in March and August, we all gather from the bridal industry for 3 days where everybody has different size booths and they bring their product to show to the retailers. We have retailers from over 28 countries and the United States, and we average about 165 to 210 exhibitors, depending on which show of the year that we're doing. I can tell you, I've been doing this for over 20 plus years, and every day I learn something new from my exhibitors, the retailers. It's just a constantly changing industry, and especially the last year and a half, it has been extremely challenging for everybody to get to market, to get their product there. So people are finding different ways to do that through Zoom, through virtual calls, sending photographs, but everybody wants to touch and feel and see that product. So I'm just trying to check my things here. All right, so best practices getting to the trade show. As Paulette said, and Meredith said, you've got to be prepared. You have to think of everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Everything financially you think that you're prepared for, you're not. And being educated is one of the best ways to succeed in this industry. Get to know your product, get to know who your buyer is. As Paulette knows and Meredith knows, everybody can be a designer. That's wonderful. But if you're designing something that nobody wants to buy, coming to market is not going to be the solution for you. And it's sad, we have a lot of talented designers out there. They're young, they're upcoming, and we need them. Every single season, we introduce about 20 to 25 new designers at our show. And it's very interesting to see their thought process, how they got to the product that they're producing. And I can tell you that half of them are going to make it, half of them are not, because they don't come to market prepared for what the industry demands of the designers, the product they want to sell, and the price point. So getting ready for market is knowing who your buyer is between the retailer and the consumer. Everybody wants to be a Vera Wang, everybody wants to be an upward designer. I'm not sure a lot of designers realize that the consumer end of the market, which is, correct me, Paulette, if I'm wrong, Meredith, we're looking at about 5,000 and up, is about 3% of the total sales in our country. So knowing that, really investigate, who are you selling to? Do you want 5 stores and maybe sell a minimum of dresses? Are you able to scale up? Do you have a factory ready to do production? These are all the things that you really need to think about. Is your product worth the money that you're going to ask? If you look inside that product, that constructed dress, does it look as beautiful on the inside as it does on the outside? That's what the clients are looking for when they're going to spend a lot of money. Even if they're spending $3,000, they want it to look like $1 million on the inside, and they want it to zip up and fit their body perfectly. So my first recommendation to any designer that wants to come and wants to show at a trade show, I invite you to come and walk the floor. Give me a call, ask me questions, call other designers, call Meredith, ask people. Get involved. Walk into a bridal store when they're not busy, hopefully. Bring your collection. Go out and ask them to tell you what they think about your product. Is it saleable? And that's what you want to find out before you invest the money. And as Paulette said, yes, being educated is very, very important. You have to know From when you start, when you get to market, to presenting that product to a retailer or even to a consumer, if you're going to do private designing, do you have enough money in the bank to, number one, pay yourself? Why are you working at something if you cannot pay yourself and make it an enjoyable experience? I've seen so many wonderful, talented designers that have burnout because they cannot make the daily expenses that they need to, and they get stressed out, and sadly, they can't survive in our industry. So my first point of thought is that if you are an emerging designer and you're starting out, connect with people that know, who have been in this industry, and that can guide you and give you some direction. And if you're in the right path, maybe you're not selling wholesaling for $2,000. Maybe you need to think about wholesaling between $700 and $1,500. The majority of dresses that wholesale in our industry start at about $500 and go to about $1,500 at the bulk of who buys retail. And then you get into the second tier, and there's a great market for that higher tier that goes from $1,500 to $3,000. People now, because they're coming out of COVID, they can't have the big receptions, so they want to go with a bigger dress. They're going to spend more. They're buying 2 dresses. So maybe you need to rethink how you are producing, what it's costing you, what your bottom line is, and what you're going to make at the end, so that it's enjoyable for you. And you can look back and say, wow, I'm an entrepreneur and I started this and I made a living out of it. And that's the sad thing, because artists are not appreciated. You know, we need more entrepreneurial designers with creativity. And the last couple of years have been amazing with what we are seeing coming out of a different look for the LGBTQ community, the ethnic community. I mean, it is exploding, and this is a wonderful creative time to get to market. Come and visit us. If you can't show and you want to get some education before you get into the market, I invite you to just come. It doesn't cost you anything except for your ticket or your car ride to get to us, but we will spend the time with you and show you there's a path and there's a process to getting to market. With all the stores that we have coming to visit, there is a store, there is a consumer for your product. And if nothing else told us this, is when Vera Wang and a couple other people started, Paula, you'll remember this, when they completely blew out the traditional princess bridal dress. And now anything goes. And it's wonderful. It's really wonderful to see the creativity that everybody is bringing to the marketplace. Pay yourself and get insurance, because we want you to be around and stay long in the industry.
This goes back to managing your cash flow, which is
Right.
something we spoke about earlier,
Oh,
and that's just so important in business like this.
Absolutely. And what Paulette said about not being aware of how the buyers are able to buy and how the consumers pay the show. It's something, it's like a deep secret. Nobody wants to talk about it, but the reality is right now we're seeing past 120 days on receivables from the retailers, because the consumer is saying to the retailer, well, I can give it to you in payments, but people don't realize when they order that dress, that money is going to not only operate their store, pay their employees, keep the lights on. So they have to pay the manufacturer, and then the store has to wait for the bride to come in and pay off the balance. So it's a very complex, everything has to fit for it to come to fruition, for the designer to get paid and the manufacturer to get paid. And if you have all the pieces in place and you get educated and you know what the building blocks are to being an entrepreneur, go to get an SBA loan, being a woman or a man or whatever, see what's out there for you. There's a lot of help right now, and they are looking, I hate to say this, but the government is really looking to help companies now. And if you get to the right person, that's what you need. You need to get somebody to mentor you and carry you along to help you get to market. And we love helping new designers. I love it. I love going around the world, seeking out new designers, looking at new ideas, and helping the people that we can get to market. But what's going to make you a success is if you were to come on our show floor with 165 designers, I can't even express to you how many different bridal dresses and accessories are on the floor. Paulette will bring 24 to 36 dresses each season. Some companies present over 300 dresses on a show floor in their one booth. So you multiply that by 165, it is an immense amount of product. Think about what you are going to design that's going to stand out, that makes you different. What is going to have a buyer buy your dress when they are already buying 10 to 15 different bridal companies? Why would they buy from you? Is it your design? Is it your fabrication? Is it your construction? Is it your price point? Is it your delivery? Is it your customer service? Is it how your booth is done? I can tell you the most creative, and Paulette was one of these that had the most creative booths. I mean, she thought outside the box and made it an exciting experience, because we all want an experience now. She did this 20 some years ago. I mean, it's about presentation, it's about color. You know, if you think feathers are going to fly, you know, put some feathers in there. Just, you have to make it something exciting and creative to show what you are capable of in bringing a creative garment to market that's going to catch the eye of a retailer. I can say that some of the best booths I've ever been in had I hate to say this, a great looking guy in a tuxedo serving cocktails. Who thought, okay? And any retailer that hires men in their store is going to have a fabulous store, because women love the opinion of a man. So you have to start thinking outside the box of how you come to market. And when you walk into a store and I would encourage everybody that's a designer, go to a bridal retailer, talk to them, ask them, what are they looking for? What is missing? What's that hole in the marketplace that 165 designers didn't think about designing? Guess what? You could be that designer that comes to market and produces something that is really outside of the box. I think the best story I can share with you is back in the early 90s, I'm going to say. One of the very first shows that we did in New York City had about 25 designers. And Melissa Sweet had a booth across from us with Jasmine, and she had 6 dresses that were home sewn and looked horrific. It was absolutely incredible. Melissa went on, she was so discouraged and everything. And I said, Melissa, go home, get a professional sewer, sew these dresses up, because the designs were phenomenal. And she ended up selling her company to David's, and she made a lot of money and became a name brand. People bought her product. Her name is still living on. But you have to believe in yourself. And if you don't, you got to find somebody that's going to keep prodding you along and pushing you along and telling you the right path to do. Get educated and spend your money wisely. Spend your money wisely. Pay your employees. Pay yourself. Marketing, marketing, marketing. Ads, social media, ads in print. I know people think print's out. It's not. People still buy those magazines. They still flip through them, but you have to also market yourself.
Let me ask you, what is the importance of a company having a website?
Everybody has to have a website. Spend your money on an absolutely phenomenal website. Beautiful graphics, not the whole slideshow graphics. The first picture they see when you're opening your website, that tells the person who you are. I know Paulette will agree with me on this, and Meredith, and I know you, Beth, also. We all see it. I don't have a Twitter account, but why do people use Pinterest? Why do they save those pictures? It's because it spoke to that person, it spoke to the consumer, and it told them, this is something I want to keep. So whatever you're doing marketing-wise, think outside the box. Don't do safe. You have to be creative. If you're a good designer and you have creativity, then express it. You know?
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with reaching out. You might get no, but reach out to a bridal magazine. Reach out to another designer and say, hey, I'm starting out. I need help. get some answers, get some info, and get educated on what you're doing. Because we need you. We need new blood in the industry every single day.
And smart new blood, so they know how to run the business.
Right.
So
You have to be educated and know what you're doing. It might delay
Exactly.
a couple months or a year. Come to market and walk the show, and you will see, are you far advanced enough to get out there and sell? And there will be a great education for you to come. So I invite you all to come to our show in August.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's so much more important to learn what you're doing before you go to these shows, because we all know designers that have bought booths, they've gone someplace, they spend tens of thousands of dollars to get there, they sit there for 3 days and they go home with nothing, and
Right.
that's heartbreaking, because that could have all been avoided had they learned how the business runs and how to integrate into a trade show before they spent that money.
Right.
It's much less expensive to go through this process that we're offering everybody today.
Right.
And then you come out in the end with results. And that's what we're all after, actual sales and results. So we've touched on the importance of having a good operating current website, having the right marketing materials, knowing who your potential customer is, and knowing your price points.
Right.
You've got to know your price points. So in the end, you're not leaving money on the table. And these are all things that we cover in our program with our supply chain experts. They know where every penny is along the way of your entire supply chain. So Jane, thank you so much for all this insight. It's just been incredible to bring all this together.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So now that we've looked at mindset, we've looked at the education pillars and sales and trade show presence, it's time to talk about funding and growing your financial business. Sergio, what do you have for us?
Hi there. Thank you so much, Beth. We're going to spend the next couple of minutes to really talk about funding your business and crowdfunding. You've probably heard about this. Maybe you're a little familiar with it, but we're going to really roll up our sleeves and get to it. Okay. Crowdfunding is really a method to raise money through a number of through the collective efforts of a lot of people. Okay. And we're going to be talking in a few minutes with a serial entrepreneur, with Steve Kaye, who has done this and has great insight on it. But just as crowdfunding 101, right? Most of these crowdfunding sites have been around for about 10 years or so. They've already raised over $34 billion, right? And these, depending on the platform, you can raise it for personal reasons, for your business, for a nonprofit. So all of them, it's a question of really putting together your story, setting up a profile, if you will, and understanding the nuance and the benefits, the pros and cons of each outfit, of each platform, if you will, right? So depending on each one of them, the money could be used differently. There's a holding period for it or not. And as you can imagine, depending on each one of these, there are some associated costs, whether they're platform fees or transaction fees or what have you. So just very, very quickly, I'll go through a couple of them. If we can go to the next slide. As you know, the big ones are Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Okay, this is the one you want to take a picture of, right? So Kickstarter, has been around since 2009. They've already raised close to $6 billion. Their model is really all or nothing, right? So there you really have to decide how much money you're going to raise, and if you don't meet that, then you don't get it. Okay, so there needs to be a lot of strategy, a lot of thinking into that. Okay, but if you are successful, the fees associated with that is a 5% commission on the platform and 3% on the transaction. Okay, so that's Kickstarter. Compare it to Indiegogo. Indiegogo, in many ways, is a little bit more flexible. Why? It operates worldwide. It's got a great rating from the Better Business Bureau. The campaigns can run up to 60 days. Okay. And what happens is, for this one, you can get get the money even if you don't get the total number of what you were shooting for. So let's say you were trying to raise $10,000, but you only collect $7,000. With Indiegogo, you still get that money. Okay. The only difference with Indiegogo is if you don't meet your threshold, then there's a difference in the commission structure of what they take. Okay, so that's that one. If you want full and total flexibility with everything, the way for you to go is GoFundMe. Okay, GoFundMe to date has raised over $9 billion. That's with a capital B, if you will. Okay, There, it's really, really versatile. You can do it for personal, for your friend, for business, for charity. They have 24/7 customer support. And what's their platform fee? Zero, absolutely nothing. Okay, so to that end, what they really leverage is a very small processing fee, which is about 2% and 30 cents per transaction. Okay, this one also doesn't have time limits associated with it. So you can do it, you can take a break, and you can continue with it. The last couple of ones that I'll just run super, super quick. You see in the upper left-hand side there, Patreon. Patreon is a play on word for a patron, right? So this is the platform that's really geared for artists, for people in fashion. And this allows you to raise money from your friends, from your family, from supporters, from admirers, okay? This one has a slightly different model, if you will, and it's tiered depending on the monthly subscription. So their fees are anywhere between 5% and 12%. So again, just another one for you to take a look at. The last two, just to round out, WeFunder are for companies that are a little bit more mature, if you will. The raise there is between $50,000 and $500,000, and that one is really geared much more on the angel investing model. So people, you are selling people shares in your company. So at some point you will be able if you do really, really great and there's a liquidation event, you'll be able to cash in on that, okay? And this one, once you submit your stuff, they do have to do your due diligence. They'll go through your numbers, if you will. For this one, the processing fee, regardless of how much money you raise, it's the same. It's 7.5%, okay? And the last one, Lending Club. I include Lending Club here. You may be familiar with it. They've been around for a while. This one gives you both access to personal loans and business loans, okay? So you will need to pay them back. But this is the processing and the approval process is much faster than a traditional bank. Your terms are usually 1 to 5 years, depending on what you go for, and that your interest rate really varies, that depending on your credit score yourself. So that one is tied to your credit score. So again, this is just a very quick synopsis to give you an idea of which ones may be right for you. Each of your business and personal situation is different. So look through all of that, give them a call as you need, and see what may work out best for you. Now that we just have a general overview of that, now we're gonna have a real life conversation, a real experience with a serial entrepreneur and a good friend, Steve Kaye, who's joining us now. He is going to share with us his experience on crowdfunding. He had a very successful one. Steve, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone's doing well. It was awesome listening to all the stories before, because, you know, when you first build a company, you have to go through this whole process, and going through the trade shows and understanding the business part of it. We all had to go through that. So I'll give you guys my story in a second, but I'll give you a little update so you guys know who I am and how I got here. So I'm more of the engineer type. So we was a part of a big startup. They did computers. I was the engineering director, and we grew the company from, you know, 0 to $200 million, and they sold to Dell. It was a company called Alienware, and it was more techy. So when they sold, I stayed on board with Dell, and I knew I always wanted to have my own company. So I was a consumer products guy. I'm a product guy, so I like building products. And so the designer on the Alienware team called me one day, and he's like, let's start a company together. And I'm like, okay, because I knew the designer is really good at designing, and I was good at engineering the product, right? He makes it look pretty, I make it work. So that was what we needed to go do. But little did we know, we had to go do all the marketing stuff, all the manufacturing, all the sales, all the trade shows. So little by little, we started, you know, doing that. Like, you know, I forgot who was saying, Jane was talking about the trade show stuff and asking the questions and all that. So we started going to the trade shows and asking questions if the product would be cool, if it works, people, what do you think about it, the price points. We wanted to understand how the whole system worked, what are the margins and all that. So that was mostly me. The designer, I had him making sure that he worked on the design of the product, that, you know, it was waterproof, that it would look good, that it was functional, all the above. So now the point comes that we're ready to go launch a product. We've done the research on it, but we need $200,000 to go get it started, because, you know, just like you guys, we need to have prototypes, designers need to have product, we have to mass produce it, you have to have everything, right? So we get to this point and we're like, man, we need $200,000. We need to get the product ready to go. How do we get $200,000? And I'm from Miami, first generation. So I have very little funds with me and my family and my group of friends. I had just, I went to Florida State and, had been working for a while, but I didn't have $200,000 ready to go. So what do I do? So I start researching, and just what Sergio did, he had all the things on there. And then this is back in 2003. And in 2003, Kickstarter was getting a lot of publicity, and a lot of cool products were being there, and there was raising a lot of capital. So I started researching. I'm like, you know what? I think we're going to do Kickstarter. And I was like, what's Kickstarter? What's Kickstarter? And so I started understanding, and I talked and I had a lot of conversations with the group at Kickstarter, and they were really nice and very supportive, and they loved what we were doing. And, we pitched it to them. So going back real quick, what Sergio and the rest of the team are talking about is building a product and building a company and having that pitch deck where you can communicate your product and your company to anybody. Well, we used that kind of stuff, and we used it to Kickstarter. So we went to the offices and everything, and we decided to go do it. So they asked us, all right, go ahead and do it. We negotiate everything. We launched it. And the first day we got one buy. The second day, my mom bought something. The third day, my dad bought something. So then I was like, man, we're not getting anything. Like, why aren't people coming to this website and giving us money? I thought it was a cool product. I did my research. Well, what do you have to do? You have to get eyes on it. You have to get marketing. So there was a company here in Miami that they did marketing, right? They're a PR company. So I talked to the owner. I go, look, man, I need help. I need eyes on this. He's like, yeah, we just started a little program. You'll kind of be our guinea pig, but we'll charge you $5,000 to do the marketing program. I'm like, man, I didn't want to spend more money to not know if we're going to get money or not. So I thought about it over the night. The next day, my sister buys something. So like I'm at 5 products sold or whatever. And I decided the last $5,000 I had set aside, I gave it to them. And sure enough, it got picked up by one of the major publications. I forgot now what it was. Engadget. It was Engadget. I'm sorry. So it got picked up by Engadget. The next day, I see $15,000 worth of product. The next day, $20,000 worth of product. And just like that, it took off. And in 30 days, we raised over $300,000. We were number 12 all time at that time. This is back then. Obviously, it's surpassed that, but we did really, really well. So that really helped me start my company, right? Because with that money from Kickstarter, we were able to go and start getting the production lines ready to go. And we really had already pre-sold, I think it was almost 1,200 units. What does that mean? I had 1,200 people piloting my product. And the good thing is that these people, from a marketing perspective, they were my consumers, and I can have direct eyes to them. So I would ask them survey questions. I would ask them what colors they liked, what functionalities they liked. And it was a really good relationship because I learned from them. I understood exactly what the product needed to be, what their environments were going to be. And for me, Kickstarter was game-changing, almost life-changing for me. Since then, it's changed a little bit, and I'll talk to you guys about that in a second. But if you are interested in going through a platform like this, things have changed. Like you really need to understand it's just a platform, right? If you go to Kickstarter now, I Googled that right before we started. If you just do wedding dresses on Kickstarter, I think there was 38 different type of iterations of that. How do people know that what's that, there? Like if I'm a consumer and I want to spend money and I'm going to go to Kickstarter to look for wedding dresses, that's not really what happens, right? You actually have to market your product, just like you're marketing it to your website, like you're marketing it to your social media. You need a platform where they're going to receive the money and then distribute to you guys after you do what you want to go do. That's why Sergio talked about the different platforms, because every platform is different. You need to understand what it's going to do for you. For me, I knew I needed to raise this amount of money. And then once I did that, they gave me all the money, and then I got all the product in, and I delivered all my product. I delivered it within 7 months. I got really good feedback. I went to trade shows, got more sales, and I ended up doing, I think I was at 45 different retailers, 7 countries, multiple distributors, and it was awesome. I will tell you that it's since gotten a little harder, again, because it's almost like your own website. You have to build a platform. You have to build a presence. So take that into consideration. It's not that cheap anymore, where it was for me was $5,000 to go do a platform. and to go do a whole marketing plan for it. It's not like that anymore. So really do your research on the social media presence that you want for your branding, but then also the Kickstarter, the press. I mean, I did press as well. You know, we're talking about digital and hard code media. That works. Just make sure you understand the cost and what it takes to drive eyes to that platform so they can go get sales, pre-sales and stuff like that.
That was awesome. Just one real quick thing, Steve, in what you've seen change in the last couple of years. Do the entrepreneurs, do the companies, do they need to have a relatively good footprint already in social media in order for the crowdfunding campaign to be effective?
You know, really good is relative. I would just say you need to have a presence, right? Like people nowadays are a lot more savvy. It wasn't back then. Like my product was on, I got Yahoo Product of the Year, I got Men's Journal Product of the Year, and all that was because of Kickstarter. So that press doesn't happen anymore. I do think that you need to have a presence. People need to trust you. I think in the early days of Kickstarter, and then through the years, there's been a trust issue with Indiegogo where people fund it and they don't get their product. So you got to be careful with that. I think consumers are a little bit more educated nowadays. And so you're going to need to have a presence, a website, some sort of, you know, fake it till you make it type thing, but at least that you're known in that industry, or at least a product like where people can actually research you. So definitely it's needed.
That's awesome, Steve. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your background. Lots of really good nuggets there. Beth, I think we're ready to wrap it all up, right?
If I can, before we head out,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to address some things that were there because I'm getting text questions from some people. Jane had mentioned, do you need a website? You know, because Beth asked that question, and I'm sorry, Steve just answered it. There's no way you cannot have a website and attract, you know, money in any way, because people need to see the product that you have in order for them to even invest in you. You know, everybody has an idea, not, you know, it starts with an idea, but I need to see something to be able to measure it up against. So I think in response to that question, yes, you need a website, and your social media is not your website. Two different things. So people have to understand that and respect it. So I think, Beth, that was such a brilliant question. And so that's something that's key. And then the other thing, Jane put down the numbers that couture, because everybody, when they start off and they get out of school, they run and they want to open their stores and they label themselves as a couture designer. There's a huge difference between couture and being custom made. And there's a huge difference between haute couture and being custom made. And Paulette can speak on it, you know, coming from, you know, the general population dressmaking to now literally working for a house of couture, working and creating for a house of couture like Yumi Katsura. So 3% is not a lot of numbers when you have to do it. There's a website that I work with, Shane, who does the wedding report, and he gives us the breakdown of the stats of how the average consumer buys. Jane is absolutely right. It's 500 to maybe 1,500 is the average American or consumer they're looking to spend, because psychologically they're like, wait, I'm only wearing this dress one time. Why should I spend so much money? Not looking on the other underpath of it, the construction, what's made, production, where it's being made, the staffing, and so on. So when people look at the industry, and Paulette, you know, said it clearly, people look at the beautiful side of it, and then, you know, like, oh my God, I make this fabulous dress, I'm the greatest and I'm the most creative, and they want to run out and they sell it. And when it doesn't sell, like Steve was saying, like, he's like, oh my God, this was a great idea, I did all my homework. And the only people that support, and can we really count them, is our parents and our family. It does something to our soul as the creators. Like, we literally start to feel like, oh my God, did I do something wrong? Am I really not prepared? And that may not be the case. At the end of the day, we still need to go back to the marketing, the promotion side, and hiring. If we don't want to invest in ourselves to be educated, which is why this whole program is, you know, we're having this conversation, then you're going to have to pay for it one way or another. Either you pay for the experts or you need to know. And this is why, for me, when Jane told me about this, this conversation, with Beth, it was so important. Every business owner needs to know every aspect of their business. And that's the end of mine.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for jumping in, Meredith. It's all great points everyone is making. And Steve, what an incredible insight. It's lots and lots of creative ways to raise money these days. So we thank you for sharing all this with us.
No,
So-
no worries. And to follow up real quick, because I thought it was really cool, is like what you guys learned through the program, you're going to apply it to a Kickstarter. You're going to apply every single product or everything that you guys create. It's a business in its own. So, going back to what Meredith was saying, every single dress or anything that you make, that's a business in its own. So think about that as you continue with your program. Good luck.
Thank you again. And so as you can tell, the theme throughout the last hour or so is that investing in yourself and your business can be transformational. And to do our part, we have put together a unique package for you to take advantage of that Sergio is now going to tell you about.
Exactly. And so we want to make sure that you have a venue to take action to make a difference with this. So we've all joined forces to put together a 4-month integrated bridal package, and this is available to you. So thank you for sticking around. The 8-week educational program, which will be virtual, you can do it from anywhere. That will take place in June and in July. Then in August, you'll go ahead and have your demo day where you'll start to pitch to buyers and demos directly. And then at the end of the month, we've put together a starter exhibitor booth at the Big Bridal Market Show in Chicago. And then September comes around, and everybody knows that September, that's the big issue of the year for fashion. So as part of that, in collaboration with World Bride Media and Meredith and the promotion, we're going to be able to showcase some of these great designers in World Bride magazine and give them the the extra needed promotion that they need to catapult for all of that. When you consider all of this, the package of this, the value of that is $17,000, okay? We know we're coming out of a difficult 12 months, and so we want to offer a special price for all of those you that attended. So we've reduced that to $10,000, okay? That's our way of helping, of jumpstarting, and again, to bring everybody under the tent for the collective good of everybody. So you remember to use the discount code Reboot, and we look forward to hearing more from you and all of that. We're going to get to questions in a second. Yehuda, if you could put the last slide up. Our group starts in a couple of weeks here in June. To apply, get more information, or anything else you might need, send us an email at info@globalfashionba.com or call us there at 954-249-4081. Go ahead and snap a little picture of this one. Reach out to us however you can, and we're here to help. We're here to walk you through it and answer any additional questions that you may have. Again, to help you reboot, reset, and move forward. So with that, I think we should open up to some Q&A.
There you go. Thank you, Sergio. I mean, there's lots of great information. So now let's have a little chat with our audience.
Perfect. The first question goes to Jane. People would like to know, how can they get additional information about your trade show? They can certainly reach out to us through the information that we just gave, but is there a website that you can give to them so they can take a look at?
You can go to nationalbridalmarket.com, and on that website, you will have my information. You can send me an email, you can call me direct, and I will be more than happy to answer any of your questions. It does not cost anything to attend the show. It is free. And I welcome everybody, if they'd like, this would be the show to come to, because we are going to be packed to the walls of retailers, buyers, magazines, press, exhibitors. It's going to be phenomenal. So,
Jane, I'd add that it doesn't cost anything to attend, but as a participator and exhibitor, it does.
yeah, okay. If you would like to participate, thank you, Paulette. It does cost to attend, and you can reach me and get the cost and what it is per square foot and the booths that we have available. We are getting close to being sold out, but we would love to welcome you to our show. It is a complete package of marketing, direct email, social media, print magazine, print directory. It's a total reach out. We have over a 6,500 database of retailers, both domestic and international. And from what we understand, everybody wants to come to market. They've been cooped up for almost 2 years. And the last show we had was August of 2019. So I think people are ready to buy and they're ready to look.
The next question is in terms of reaching different bridal markets. How is getting access to the European bridal market similar or the same as to the U.S. Or
Yes,
who should
it
they
is.
follow up with?
Yes. If whoever asked this question, if you want to write me an email, I will send you all the links to the different markets. Unfortunately, in Europe, some of the countries are not opening up as quick as we are. There will be a British market in Harrogate. I'm not sure if Barcelona got canceled or if it's still on. But as of right now, it's the Chicago bridal market. There will be a market in New York City in October, if I'm not mistaken, Paulette. I think there will be one. I don't remember the dates. And Harrogate is the first weekend or second weekend in September. And that's usually one of the biggest European show next to Barcelona.
Great, thank you, Jane. This next question is for Steve. The question is, they mentioned that the crowdfunding on GoFundMe, most of that stuff has been done much more on a personal nature, and it doesn't seem as business oriented. From your perspective, is that a detriment? Will people take you less seriously as a business owner if you do your crowdfunding through GoFundMe versus other platforms?
No, I think GoFundMe is fine. The platform is a platform just to receive money. The platform that you make out of it is really on you. It's your branding. It's the idea that you want to convey to everybody. So if you're just trying to raise money from your friends and family, then yeah, that'll work. But if you really want to start raising money from other people or getting consumers or getting people that are going to understand what your product is and give you feedback, just make sure that you market it in a way that's what you want. If it's strictly just for money, yeah, just do it, GoFundMe. But if you're going to do a GoFundMe, make sure people, and you're going to spread it out to the rest of the world, and they're going to invest in you, and you're going to have a relationship. It's just whatever you want out of that. I guess that's the right answer for that.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. And the next question is for Paulette. Paulette, where do you normally find inspiration for your designs?
Oh boy, well, inspiration can be found anywhere. It could be found, from a spring bloom. It could be found, just walking down the street, or as I mentioned before, from various, cultural or social happenings. So you always have to be open to be inspired. And as I mentioned also before, that sometimes the inspiration finds you. Sometimes you can be inspired by a previous bride. Sometimes you can be inspired by history. There was one year where I pulled in like all of the famous television weddings, and I was inspired by that. It was more of a royalty sort of collection that I was doing, and I pulled in Princess Grace. I pulled in Audrey Hepburn. I pulled in Grace Kelly, and all of the movies that they did. Elizabeth Taylor. And that year was one of my best collections, just drawing from that. So it could be from anything. And as I mentioned earlier, to this year, last collection, my inspiration was basically from everything that was going on with the pandemic to create something beautiful, like a butterfly, a metamorphosis out of the ugliness of the year. We were, more beautiful and more resilient and ravishing than ever. So you always have to be open to it and never close yourself off to inspiration. It can come from anything. Sometimes my son's voice inspires me. So you just always have to be aware.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paulette. And our last question, it appears, Meredith, the question is, if you could, from all the different entrepreneurship and fashion experiences that you've had, if you went back in time, let's say 10 years ago, what did you wish that you know now that you didn't know then?
That's a loaded question. I'm still learning. There's a lot of things that I would like to change. But I would have definitely partnered with other professionals a lot sooner. I am so grateful for the relationships that I have with other publications, because in this society, they make it seem as though publications are against each other. I work with Mary from Black Brides, and we bounce each other up information off of each other. You would think that we're competing with each other, and we are not. We happily share if we have content, and if something doesn't work for my magazine, I will share it with her. And if something doesn't work for her, or we can share the same space, we do. So collaborating with other professionals is key for me. And I wish I had known that before, instead of, I heard this amazing interview with Naomi Campbell and Iman. And they were both saying how the Black girls that were already limited in the market, the industry started to pit them against each other. And it was Iman and Beverly Johnson, the icons, that literally said, no, we are not competing with each other. And when they would walk in the room together, they would embrace each other. And so I feel like that's the most powerful thing that we can do, is the collaborations. That's what I would have wished somebody would have told me.
That's outstanding. Meredith, thank you so much. Any last comments from any of the other panelists? We're fresh out of questions. Any parting thoughts?
I think
There
Meredith.
was a question that I don't think we answered about causes and the bridal industry. Did you see that question?
If you want to go ahead.
Is it beneficial to champion a cause for exposure in the bridal industry? Absolutely. It's always great to champion a cause. It's always great to highlight what you're passionate about. For the first time in our show, we are going to have a company that designs dresses, outerwear, whatever, for animals, because people have animals at their weddings now, and it's a cause, and it's supported by the SPCA, and we love to champion those. We love to champion anything we can to get exposure for the issues that we have in our life. And I think it's a great platform to do that in any way we can.
I agree. It's all about collaboration. And that's shows what we've all come together here today on this platform to collaborate and bring together this incredible package that includes everything from the education to the trade show to the publicity and promotion to help everyone, build their brands. And we just want to thank everyone today for joining us. The schedule of our webinar series is available on our website at globalfashionbusinessalliance.com. And please remember to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you again to our guest today, Meredith Leon McCormick of World Bride Magazine, our expert bridal consultant, Jane Heflin, bridal designer and entrepreneur extraordinaire, Paula Claycorn, our serial entrepreneur and crowdfunding expert, Steve Kaye, and Sergio Manquita of Gen Accelerate. And a special thank you to all of you for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out to me directly for any questions, and we look forward to working with you to make your bridal business a true success. Until next time, be well and be safe. Thank you again.